Welcome to Nature Calls, conversations from the Hudson Valley. Our team's goal is to present science-based information about gardening and all things nature in New York's Hudson Valley. Hosts Jean and Tim, along with team members Teresa and Linda, are master gardener volunteers for New York's Columbia and Greene counties. So if you're interested in gardening or nature or nuggets of information about what's happening outside your door, settle in. Enjoy the conversation. Whatever the season, we have something to say.
Hi, I'm Tim Kennelty.
And I'm Jean Thomas.
And welcome to Nature Calls, conversations from the Hudson Valley.
We're here today with our good friend Joe Behn, owner of Behn's Best Perennials in Malden Bridge, New York. Behn's is a wholesale business, but you've probably purchased Joe's plants if you've been to any of the local garden club and botanical garden plant sales. Joe also has the famous plant cart in front of his nursery where you can buy whatever's in bloom and pay on the honor system.
So, Joe, we're really happy to have you back today, and you're going to talk to us about what's hot in the perennial world and what are your favorites. You grow, I know, because I've been there many, many times, literally hundreds of perennials. I know it's always difficult to choose your favorites, and so we thought the best way to organize our discussion today is to talk about plants by bloom time. Everyone always wants to come into your place and buy things in bloom like everywhere else. So that's how we thought we might talk about plants, and we're going to start with April.
That's so good. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for having me back.
We're always excited to geek out with you on perennials.
To geek out
Joe.
on plants, exactly
Really.
right. So these are a lot of new things. You'll recognize a lot of the genus names, of course, but there's just so much new plants always in the pipeline on the way.
And tell us how you pick these before we jump into your favorites
Right.
and the new
So
ones.
typically each year I have to kind of jettison 20 or 30 types to add 20 or 30 types. And I really just depend on my landscape customers who come through, and of course all my plant suppliers. The plant suppliers are really on the front there of bringing in all these new plants from all over the place and hybridizing and so forth. So, and of course they get to trial them and really make sure that everything works well before I get them. So we can start with April. The epimediums are just such an amazing plant. They're greatly deer resistant, drought resistant, so they're good dry shade plants and great fall color. The flowers have like little spiders that come off of them. They look like little hanging spiders, all different kinds of colors. It's a little bit subtle, but I would say you need to become a collector. If you like epimediums, you need bunches of different types.
And do they disappear? I mean, I know they bloom really early. Do they disappear or they hang out?
No, they hang out perfectly. It's almost like a woody stem, a little short, 8, 10, 12 inches tall. And yeah, they hang on very, very well.
They're way, way underutilized because people don't see them. They're so little and dainty.
Yep.
The foliage is fabulous. The flowers, there's a whole range of them. They're not just spidery. Some of them look like little tiny imitation daffodils.
And dry shade. I mean, really, dry shade's like the worst,
Yep.
right?
And deer proof.
And deer proof too. So is there one that is your favorite of the epimediums?
If the epimediums have a wrap on them, is that they're slow growing. So you need to really, when you purchase something, it wants to be kind of nice and chunky. As far as favorites for me, it's like I can't even name a variety.
I hate when people do that.
There's so many.
They're all wonderful.
Yeah. And you sell quite a few varieties.
We carry
right?
three types. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you should plant 3 at a time because they're slow growers.
Yep, exactly.
Make a little cluster and let them go. Yep. They're stubborn. They will stay.
I'm incredibly impatient. I don't know about the slow growing. I like the fast, crazy growers. But I do have epimediums. I do have them in my garden.
And then hellebores, their companion in mystery.
Very similar in their growth habit. Again, dry shade and deer resistant.
Their foliage is kind of on steroids.
And so many different types. You have a lot of foliage, exactly. Many times they'll bloom before the actual leaves have come out.
And they're pretty good at coming back year after year, right? Hellebores.
Oh, yeah. I think they're hardy as a stone.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things where if you're going to invest the money in is something a true perennial, they really do fall into that category, right?
They probably don't take the dry shade like epimediums do. They're going to need really good fertile soil, at least evenly moist.
But if they like the soil, they'll make babies for you. And their seed pods are fabulous.
Yep.
This is
The
just a
whole thing.
win-win program.
And I know we said
It's evergreen.
deer resistant. What about rabbits? Do you see that? Because rabbits eat a lot more than the deer do sometimes.
Sure, it can be.
I mean, have you heard that from the? But you do.
I really haven't. No.
But you do have designers that use them a lot out in unfenced areas.
Oh, sure.
right?
Yeah. I would use it definitely in an unfenced area.
Now, those who grow hellebores kind of have been reluctant. They're another one where you want to make collections. But there used to be,
Exactly.
back in the olden days, up until like yesterday, the flowers all faced down and were very bashful. And I'm just looking recently at pictures from one of the flower shows, and they're all standing up and looking you right in the eye. They're going to take off.
Yeah, I think that was one of the breeding improvements is that they were upward facing.
And there is a
flowers.
lot of breeding there with both these,
Oh,
right?
constantly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, unlike some of the other plants. Well, okay, hellebores. And so what happens when we move out of April? And what happens then? What are the ones that you're going to talk about?
Well, then
Joe?
just plants just explode. Once we get into May, the perennial plants really take off. April, I think of as being like the kind of the bulb season, and perennials are just kind of waking up and sticking their heads up. But once you get into the month of May, it's
okay.
it's
So
a
what
riot.
about May, Joe? What would I be having to
So
bloom in
we've
May?
got down Amsonia storm cloud. Again, there's lots of really good Amsonias, probably 6, 7, 8 different types, and it's hitting all those same boxes: drought resistant, deer resistant, good foliage. So one of my kind of parameters to grow plants is they need to really look good from April to November, if possible. And many times, like I think almost all of these kind of check that box.
And why storm cloud? What is that one that just is a cultivar that is?
It's a mid-size. I think it has darker stems as it comes out, and then the dark stem goes really real well with that periwinkle blue flowers. Deer
Now,
don't eat it.
another name for the Amsonia is blue star. So
Right.
some people may know it by that.
And it is a native plant too. I mean, I don't
We
know if
looked
it's
it up.
I don't know if it's native in Columbia County, but it's native to the northeastern part of the United States. I think I don't know if you'd find it in the woods, but I know it's one that is on a pollinator list for a lot of people. So
I
it's
saw a big, huge one up at the Adirondack Museum. So they, what's that, Zone 3?
It must be.
Yeah.
and again
It used to be.
this is one of those plants that comes back year after year. It's
Hardy
kind of
as
like
a stone,
yeah.
low maintenance, no staking.
Yeah.
You just basically, springtime or whenever you like to do your cleanup.
Does this have the nice gold fall foliage?
I'm not positive how gold it gets. I'm sure it does to some degree.
Yeah.
But the foliage is nice and it hangs on, even after there's frost.
And this
it
is
hangs
another
on
one
the-
that makes a really interesting seed pod.
You're a seed geek, I
I'm
think.
a seed geek.
So what else in May, Joe?
So then we go to the baptisias, which I don't think are necessarily blooming in May, but certainly coming out of the ground. And again, become a collector. There are so many different types.
You may know them as false indigo, and
yeah,
they're in the
exactly.
pea family, right?
Exactly.
So you
The
see
Lacinaceae,
you
sure.
recognize the foliage and the stems when they come up out. Yeah.
So related to clover, and that gives it a really good hardy, like our good friend Lespedeza is in the clover.
Now, are baptisia supposed to not be moved? It's one of the ones I've heard.
You can move them. It's a small window. It would be probably in the month of April.
Okay, because I've moved mine around. I pay no attention.
Of course you don't. There are no rules for you.
They are big plants.
They can be big.
And the
You
straight
need a helper usually.
the straight species is like a blue, right?
Exactly.
But then they've
Yep.
done a lot of breeding, right?
Right,
There's all
exactly.
kinds of
Now there's yellows and two-tone colors.
and like root beerish colors and like a
Right.
maroon
Sure.
color. I know. Yeah.
It's what happens when many different hybridizers start work on the same plant.
Is that
they all
right?
come through with
Yeah.
just a little different take
And they're all
on.
good colors. They're not all the
Yeah.
little pastel wimpy stuff.
Yep.
They're really strong and
and
unusual.
I'm going to keep at this. Like, do you have a favorite of these, Joe? Is there one that,
Well,
or the one that people are asking for a lot?
We're growing one right now. I think it's a proven winner's called Blueberry Sunday.
Yes.
Ooh, anything that sounds like food.
I mean, okay, let's go
right.
eat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
exactly.
yeah, my,
Naming plants is all about
it is.
rock and roll
Yeah.
songs and food, feel
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah. What about Berneras? I know you have that on your list.
The Brunners are great.
Brunner.
Yep.
It mispronounced
Tim.
it.
It's okay.
Yeah, tomato. I've got down Brunnera Alexandria, which kind of replaces Jack Frost. We've had issues with Jack Frost in the summertime where they get a little spotty, the black spots on them. But Alexandria seems to be very, very clean and just that big, kind of bold.
Now, are they
silver
the
plant.
mottled leaves too with the markings on them?
This one is really almost all silver. It might have a green edge to it, but it's almost
So
all
they
silver
make a nice mound, and then they set the flowers up on long stems, and they look just like forget-me-nots.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
it is
what
a
I
forget-me-not.
Yeah.
It's a perennial forget-me-not.
Okay.
And they're not very tall. It's kind of like a spray that comes up above the foliage.
Yep.
I'm sure it's under 2 feet.
So it's, it would be. Yeah.
Again, one that I forget about that I have, and all of a sudden it pops up and it's there because, again, it's a really reliable one, not one that...
And they're tough.
Yeah.
And they'll take it a little bit on the moist side. Summertime, if you have a drought, you got to give it a little extra care. But, it's because it's a shade plant. So.
Well, they're gorgeous with the hellebore.
Exactly. Sure.
The combination of all that foliage is yummy.
So this new cultivar that you're talking about, it doesn't have the spots? Because I found that because I have Jack Frost, and everybody sells Jack Frost.
I've grown this one now 2 years, and pots are a little more difficult than in the ground. Mm-hmm. So if it survives well in the pots and doesn't get any of those fungal spots, it should do very well in the ground as well. If I could just jump onto something about silver foliage plants.
Yeah.
So within the deer-resistant or deer-proof world, there's still really only 3 things. It's ferns, grasses, and silver foliage plants that pretty much are rock-solid deer-proof.
Like stackies and things like that.
It's
like
perfect.
fuzzy silver.
A lot of the silver stuff is fuzzy.
Yeah.
Yep. And so this falls into that with the silver foliage.
And mints too, right? But a lot of the mints are silver too, right?
I think so. Yep. And then the petas fall in there because that's a mint and a semi-silver thing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there.
Yeah, we've proved Joe to be right over and over.
Yet again.
So far.
So far, you're doing good. We're only up to the G's.
What's next in May, Joe?
So then we go into the geraniums. There's a new one called Crane Dance, which is actually our native geranium. I say it's native. It grows all over, Geranium maculatum. And this is an improvement of it with dark foliage. Ooh. And then that great kind of pink flowers that are held up above it.
And this is one where I'm going to be sitting outside of Behn's Best Perennials waiting for
Crane Dance.
When I saw this, because I love maculatum because it's really tough, right?
It is. Yeah,
I abuse my plants, and it's really tough. You keep finding them.
It lives on the ditches, around here.
And it's this great native pollinator plant, but it's super tough. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize there was an improvement on it.
Yeah, there's many improvements on it. There was one called Dark Rider for years, which I think is still available in the trade. But Crane Dance is now probably an improved Dark Rider.
So isn't there one that's like chocolate or something too that has these kind of very maroonish leaves?
You're right, and that's what this is.
Okay. Oh, cool.
It's that chocolatey foliage.
Now he's going to be there the night before.
Yeah, totally.
Good move, Joe.
No, because it's a neat plant, but also to have the foliage improved is a really cool thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent.
And if they like the spot, they'll fill it out like you expect Pachysandra to. I mean, they will just cover.
I get the sense that it may go a little soft in the summertime, so you might need to go in there and trim it and just kind of get a new flush of foliage. Yep. And then it'll be a little shorter, of course, too, at that point.
It's almost one of the ones that people are talking about is almost like a lawn replacement. Not that you'd walk on it, but like if you have an area that doesn't have a lot of high traffic as a really tough ground cover. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this would fall into that category, but the whole lawn replacement thing, I haven't really investigated too much on that, but there do seem to be a lot of good choices. I know if I had a small front yard or side yard that just had to be mowed, once a week, it would be gone. It would just be plants.
We're way off topic, but what plants would you plant? Because Joe's here, so I'm going to ask him.
Go for it.
Yeah. Well, what would you plant?
Yeah, I mean,
it would be a garden. It would be garden plants.
Are you talking about like sedges and things like that? Or?
No, not flowering things. If I had a postage stamp front yard, it would not have any lawn.
Okay.
Yep. A walkway and just plants.
Well, I think he could do that, right? Since he owns Bain's Best Perennials.
Yeah,
right?
maybe he has. I haven't been over to the house.
It's a size issue.
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain
true.
point, oh my God,
True.
yeah, no, we need to have lawn because
Well, you could do a tapestry with just geraniums, the different geraniums.
And you have a lot of geraniums, right? You grow a lot of geraniums.
I think it's at least 5, maybe 6.
Okay,
There's-
what's the
yep.
second one on your list? Azure Rush.
Okay, so Azure Rush is kind of an improvement over Roseanne. So if we
that's a
More
good
to
one.
blue.
if we backtrack, I learned in college geranium Johnson's blue, and then eventually there was Brookside, and now Roseanne has
Roseanne is
kind
everywhere.
of pushed them aside,
Right.
and now Azure Rush is basically head and shoulders right along with Roseanne. It does seem to bloom earlier and bloom later and be a little less sprawly.
What about the color? It's azure.
Oh yeah, it's just a beautiful
Real blue?
and it blooms like an annual. It just goes and goes and goes.
Really?
And the deer don't really bother them, right? I
Hard to
haven't-
know. I know
mean,
years ago I had a geranium that was just mangled by the deer.
It's
But that
one of
was-
those things where it depends on the volume of the deer, but they haven't bothered mine.
A lot of
certainly.
the geraniums have a strong scent.
Yeah.
The foliage. So maybe that's it. With,
I'm not
with
sure if this
certain
one's
ones.
scented.
Well, we'll find out because I'll be riding shotgun with you.
Azure Rush is great. Anytime you can get a perennial plant that blooms like an annual and still is hardy,
And in the blue.
yep, sign up.
I think
Right,
it's so
and in the blue.
it's so interesting. It's like the in plant, right? It's an it plant now.
Oh
or
sure,
it's starting
yeah.
to be an
Because
it
you can
plant
do
together.
big swaths of it,
Yeah.
drifts of it.
You-
3 at a
It
time.
really holds the place.
Don't you have one called New Hampshire or something?
New
too?
Hampshire purple, which is
right.
sanguinea.
Yeah, it's a
Lots
nice
of
one, too,
those.
Yeah.
And they reseed and bounce around and show up in places that you didn't plant them.
I have a
plants.
garden like that. Well, it just does its own thing.
Well, that's the best way to garden. I think is like just knowing what to leave.
Yeah, I just go
Rather
out and
than-
look around and say, okay, where are the flocks this year?
So your garden is a reflection of your personality, Gene. Did
It's
you
a
know
movable
that?
feast.
Yeah. So it kind of is just there.
Yeah.
What about? I know you have a lot of heucheras and heucherellas, and is there a difference between a heuchera and a heucherella?
There is. I've got Heucherella Copper King, which is a great orange color. So it's a cross between tiarellas
Right.
and heucheras. Tiarellas being a little less fussy than the heucheras. Heucheras really, they walk a fine line between not needing too much moisture and not being too dry. It's got to be. And I find if you lift them, if they're up on top of a wall or something where they have really good drainage but good soil, they'll do fine.
I can put them with my creeping phlox.
And
Yeah,
That's
that
what
might
they
work.
want. They
Yeah.
want to be on a slope.
And
always.
just a little bit of shade.
Yeah.
Yep.
but there is like with heucheras and heucherellas, I always get confused as to whether they want a lot of shade or it depends on the particular cultivar, right? And the color. I mean, to some extent.
I would kind of lump them all the same.
Which
I tend
would
to
be
give
what?
things a little bit more sunlight than
shade.
than
Okay.
shade because
Well, to build the flowers.
Yeah,
And it's probably like you say, the drainage is probably almost more important
drainage
than the sun,
is key.
right?
Yeah, they fall into the same category as the lavenders. Good soil, but it wants to be lifted. You don't really want to put them too much in a bed situation where, and these days now, almost every garden that gets installed has some kind of irrigation system. And
The rich people, not us.
people
but-
kill.
Yeah. I'm on a well. Forget about it.
Yeah, people kill more plants, I think, with too much water than without.
Yeah, like house
These are
plants. Yeah.
these plants. My dad used to call them educated weeds. These perennial plants, they're just educated weeds. And where do the weeds live? They just live all over the place. No one's watering them. Just leave them alone. Plant them, good soils, and kind of get out of the way.
And it sounds like these would not do well in really heavy clay soil like
Absolutely
heucherellas,
not, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they
Good
want
fertile soil, good
Little
drainage.
fluff, little fluffy.
Yep.
Now, here's another one that thinks it's a weed is salvia. Any salvia, just
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, there's so many salvias. There's another one where you can become a collector. Yep.
And this is a specific one that you have called
this
Superb Pink Profusion.
Yeah, this pink profusion, I believe it's a Proven Winners hybrid, and it's more raspberry than it is pink. I think the word pink probably doesn't suit it well.
Yeah.
But there's these, we're used to violets and like blue jean blue colors, white salvias, and then they've shifted. They found like this rose colored,
And there's
now
a
there's
deep
a whole
purple
bunch
kind
of
of
them.
one, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a superba. How big does it get?
They were all basically somewhere between 16 and 24 inches tall. And if you deadhead them, you will get a reflush, shorter and
Now, how
shorter
does
blooms
this
later.
compare to the Maynite, which is like the ultimate?
It is.
I'm sure it's a parent somehow along the way. Definitely related.
So it's the same kind of stocky, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
stockiness. Maynite grows kind of as in a V shape. Where a lot of these other ones are really, really upright. So,
Oh, okay.
so Maynite really covers more ground. It's wider,
Yeah.
just because of its habit.
And they bloom in May, and then they kind of just, I mean, I find their foliage kind of is a little tattery after that.
Sure. Yep. Deadheading. That one does need a little bit of maintenance. And of course, I wouldn't have put it in the May category. I think it's more of a June plant.
Yeah, Tim.
Man, I've goofed this all up,
It would
haven't
be
I?
in bud in May,
Oh, okay.
end of Memorial
So it
Day.
qualifies.
It's on its way.
Yeah, if Memorial Day is late this year.
Dissed all the time. Well, so speaking of June, maybe we should move to June then,
Perhaps.
right?
Yeah.
What's your first plant you're
There's
talking
just
about?
so
in
much
June?
going on in
Yeah.
the month of June.
Yeah.
We've got the calaminthas, which are great new additions to the garden world. They've been around a long time, but they've become more popular.
You have a lot of calaminthas, right?
I just grow two. The
Oh, okay.
Montrose White,
They're just big.
and then
what's the other one?
We grow one from seed called Blue Cloud.
What's the difference between a calamintha and a nepeta?
I love that you're asking that question because
Well,
I've
I can't
always
tell them
asked that.
apart.
Wanted that too.
You can see that it's called Calamintha nepeta or nepetaoides. So very close. They're probably cousins.
Okay.
We'll call it like
and
that.
they're both mints.
Both mint, scented. This one's nice because it's kind of shortish and billowy, kind of a filler plant down front. Deer
And-
don't eat it.
And you know me, I'm like a crazy native planting person, but one of the non-natives that I love are the calaminthas.
Yeah.
and the
Tons of
nepetas.
insects.
Yeah, because they're great pollinator
Yep.
plants and they're deer resistant. So even though maybe there's not a lot of they're not a host plant for a lot of caterpillars, they're really, really good pollinator plants.
Almost all of these plants, well, I will say all of these plants have something that
Right.
visits it.
Right.
And many times multiple.
Yeah, I mean the catmints are super. They're just
Exactly.
covered with bees
Yep.
usually.
Bees,
Okay.
little flies, little wasps.
Talk about
Nip.
Nepeta Junior Walker. Because that's related, right, to some extent to what we've been talking about.
Oh, sure.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Junior Walker.
Junior Walker. There's a Walker, right? And
Who's
then there's
Junior Walker?
or there's
Junior
a
Walker and
Walker's-
the All-Stars?
No, but isn't there
Okay.
Junior Walker and a Walker's Low or something
well,
like
exactly.
that too?
You're right, and that sends us into our next category.
Yeah.
We skipped a couple, but we'll go with
Yeah.
Nepetas next. Lots of different types. I grow cat's pajamas. We grow Junior Walker. We grow Walker's Low.
I really like cat's pajamas, not just because of the name, but it's like a cool plant.
Oh,
It's a
it
nice-
is. Very, very low,
Yeah.
and again, blooms like an annual.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
moundy too. Like
Yep, that one's
fluffy.
really short.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, likes good drainage, right? I planted it on a hill, basically, so
Right,
that
exactly.
the water just
they
comes
can take
off.
a lot of all-day sun, good soil, but really dry, dryish conditions.
So it's good, like as a front of the border plant.
Cat's pajamas for sure.
Yeah.
If we can just back up
Oh, yeah, sorry.
to Walker's Low, everyone thinks that it's short. The word low is right there.
Right.
It comes from a garden somewhere in Great Britain, and you know how the Brits are with their English.
Yeah, like Watership Down. Yeah.
So Walker's Low is actually a name of a garden somewhere.
So nepetas, are we done with nepetas?
Yep. Again,
Or
become a
nepetas?
collector. There's just lots and lots of good ones.
How is it pronounced, nepeta or nepeta?
You tell me.
Does it
Yeah.
matter?
I don't
no.
care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And there is one other Nepeta that I
Yeah.
did not put on here. It's a Siberica, so Nepeta Siberica.
Oh, I know which
French
one.
name.
It's cadeau or something. It's like gift of someone, right? I love that
I
plant.
would mangle it, but
No, I love that plant. We should look it up because it's
great.
somebody's name and it's like gift of souvenir to somebody, right?
Andre Chandron.
Yes, I
Yep.
bought that from you.
that comes
Those-
trippingly to the tongue.
And those bloom for such a long time.
It's very
right?
upright.
Yeah.
Like so, 3.5 feet, and just blooms its head off. If you deadhead it, it rebranches.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it.
Yep.
Again, a huge pollinator plant.
So I could make a whole
Exactly.
meadow of just catmints.
You could.
Sure, why not?
That'd be kind of cool. And it's low maintenance as far as
Very
water and
much.
stuff.
Yep.
You know,
Okay.
I have a neighbor who had a landscape person come in and planted all these catmints, and I was a little disdainful, you know, but now year after year they come back and they've filled in, and I know you have to cut them back
Some
at
are
some point.
reseeding.
Right?
Yeah, really just once.
But it
you know,
looks really
springtime.
nice. Yeah.
Yep. Go out there with a weed whacker
I judged,
right.
or
I
your
judged,
mower all the way
yeah.
up or something.
Yeah.
That's you,
And then
Tim.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, we skipped a couple things. Hibiscus, though, everybody knows what hibiscus is supposed to look
a lot
like.
of great hibiscus now. The hardy hibiscus, like it moist.
Almost wet, right?
Yeah, almost wet, right?
Yeah.
And deer love them.
full sun. Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Well, I plant mine
Yeah,
with
do.
alliums around and among them.
Or if you
And
have a
it slows them
fenced,
down for a while.
if you have a fenced area or something like that.
What's so
that's it.
special about the Holy Grail?
Well, so anytime you have these plants that the deer are going to eat for certain, fencing is really the only
Yeah.
number 100% method to save those plants. So we grow a lot of these plants, daylilies. I have a great daylily selection at my house, but they're always inside
Right.
a fence. The vegetable garden, the pool garden, wherever you have a fence.
What color is the Holy Grail?
A Holy Grail is like a bright red
that's nice.
with dark foliage.
Oh, yum.
Yeah, I'm seeing it all over now, and again, I think we got it slotted wrong. I think it's more of an August plant.
man.
but it's okay.
Hostas. What is lipstick blonde?
That's one that you want to put in the fenced
Yes,
area
yeah,
too, right?
exactly.
Hostas,
Oh,
yeah.
that's just your
Inside for
candy by
sure.
definition.
Yeah, what about this particular
and
one?
again, become a collector. If you like
Yeah.
hostas, there are so many. But lipstick blonde is interesting. I'm growing it really for the first time. And it's a gold-colored hosta, but the beauty of it is that the petioles of the leaf are red-colored. So they come
That's
out of the
cool.
ground really with this two-tone thing going on there, a red, purplish colors
Looks
kind
like
of thing.
Crayolas.
And hostas come back year after year
Oh,
too. It's
very
another
tough.
one that
You cannot get
very
rid of them if you have a fence for them.
But my issue with them, and I don't know if you've got a cultivar that is resistant to this, but they get a little gnarly looking over time, especially in like August, September. Yes.
Yep, there's a late blooming one called Halcyon,
Hmm.
which is a powdery blue color.
One of the bigger ones?
Small, no, small to medium. I'd say more like medium, but it blooms really well. It's one of the few plants, few hostas.
Is it scented?
Probably the flowers.
Because I know
are.
there's a
think
few that
flowers
smell
are.
really good.
And
Elegance
it looks
is my
good later
favorite.
in the season.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's blooming really late, so late July into August. And it hangs in really well. And again, they'll take dry.
And you
for
grow
a big
that?
foliage plant, yeah, we
You grow that one?
grow
Okay.
Halcyon.
Dry's kind of better because if it's wet, the slugs get in.
Something like that, right? Sure.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, let's try this one. Is it Stokesia or Stokesia?
I like Stokesia.
I think Stokesia too.
Yeah.
It is much more mellifluous.
And you've got a bunch of those.
Yeah.
Also known as the Stokes aster, which is where the confusion about the pronunciation.
Right. When you throw the word aster in there, people become very confused.
"Oh,
Well, common
okay."
names.
So I don't.
Or-
Yeah, common names are
Yeah.
wonky.
I know we could sit here forever, but the Stokesias, you have a couple of cultivars.
Well,
that
they're
are-
great because it's
right?
again we've slotted it wrong. It's August. Really, it's early August.
Joe, if you could stop saying that, I'd appreciate it. But
Do they come in before all the other asters? Are they like an early equivalent of aster?
It's in that space between the July blooming plants and the September blooming plants. Like
So
the
they've got a
month of
good spot.
August can be a really kind of a downtime
Tough, yeah.
as far as flowers go.
although I have some slotted there, probably incorrect.
But they're tough. They're very unique. You'd have to look them up for you to describe what the flower looks like. It's not quite a daisy. It's really, and it's a good blue color. These are blues. The honeysong purple.
It's hard to find good blue flowers. I think.
Real blue is
Yeah.
really tough. And the
Right.
Stokesia have like a yellow eye, too, very vividly.
I think down in there
A lot of
is.
them.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's a good cut flower.
Yeah.
It's shortish though. It's still probably 20 inches.
Oh,
and
they
you-
do
and-
stay chunky.
Yes, and chunky and
and-
really hardy.
And you have one more on your list for June, possibly June, or maybe some other month. Veronica,
It's certainly-
Longifolia Blue Skywalker.
Blue Skywalker, tapping into a little bit of pop culture there. Somebody saw the
was
connection.
Cute.
Blue
It's cute.
Skywalker.
And what's so great about this plant?
Well, it's a new plant that's just really floriferous and really good branching. If you deadhead it, again, it's going to continue to bloom.
Okay.
Now,
Good
this-
cut flower, big, strong stems, probably 30 inches tall.
Okay.
Just a good chunky.
So it's a speedwell, and the speedwells are just famously a good chunky, solid plant, and the flower stems are spikes, and they're really nice, thick.
A lot of spikes of blue, and there's a red
vivid.
one or a pink one called red fox.
Yeah, because
that one's a little bit less vigorous than the blue ones.
Okay, but the speedwell have been around forever.
And there's trailing ones, there's short ones, there's bigger ones.
Huh. So that's it for April, May, and June perennials. And in our next episode, we're going to talk to Joe about perennials that are more summer, like July, August, and even September perennial blooming flowers.
And that's going to cover the whole season with Joe Behn.
Yeah, there's some really great flowering plants that we're going to talk about in those months, especially September.
That concludes another episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. We would like to thank Sandra Linnell and Devin Connolly from Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene Counties for production support. And a special thank you to our listeners for joining us on this episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. You can find links to any of the topics mentioned in this episode at our website at ccecolumbiagreen.org. Comments and suggestions for future topics may be directed to us at columbiagreenmgb@cornell.edu or on the CCE Master Gardener Volunteers of Columbia and Greene Counties Facebook page. For more information about Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene Counties, visit our website at ccecolumbiagreen.org or visit us in Hudson or in Acre. Cornell Cooperative Extension provides equal programming and employment opportunities.